You might be struggling with compulsions that you don't even know that you're doing and that are taking a huge amount of energy from you. Of course, most people will know about their more obvious compulsions, whether that's hand washing, whether that's checking things, checking the stove or checking the oven, whether that's kind of, thinking about your relationship again and again, trying to have certainty about it. Those more obvious kind of compulsions, well, we tend to know when we're kind of doing those things. But OCD is obviously very complex. There's all sorts of other compulsions that are going on in the background. And if we don't recognize, some of these smaller ones, some of these things that aren't quite so obvious, they can kind of just run there in the background. And in the process, frustratingly, they take up an enormous amount of our energy. I think that's one of the worst things about OCD is when you're kind of stuck in the loop. What tends to happen is your focus, it really gets fixated here in the prefrontal cortex. And this part of the brain is actually the most energy hungry part of the brain. And the brain is the most energy hungry organ of the body. And so when we get stuck up here and we're thinking and we're analyzing, and we're trying to have certainty, it uses up so much of our energy. And I don't know about you, but obviously when you find yourself kind of thinking about things, getting stuck on things, when you're doing compulsions, it is exhausting. It takes up an enormous amount of energy to be able to kind of think in that way. And so, whilst we may be improving at kind of managing some more of the kind of obvious compulsions, if there's still a lot of kind of more subtle compulsions that are running there in the background, that can also take up an enormous amount of energy and time in the process. And so learning to kind of shine a light on what some of those compulsions might be and actually to kind of, to stop doing them, it can really give you back a lot of your time, a lot of your energy and a lot of your focus. If you're resonating with this and you're looking for some support with OCD and anxiety, you can check out my Break Free from OCD program. It is a structured 12-week approach to dealing with OCD and anxiety. It's packed full of practical tips, meditations, resources. It includes 12 weekly coaching sessions. And it's really kind of based on all of the years of experience that I gained from dealing with OCD myself and the many years of experience that I've got from working with people with OCD. To check it out, you can head over to my website, robertjamescoaching.com. There's a link in the show notes. And now on with the rest of this episode. So how can we do that? Well, one important thing is to kind of really reflect on what things are kind of taking your time that are unnecessary, and why are you doing those things? Are you doing those things out of fear? Because, that is the most obvious reason for why it may be related to OCD. If we're doing something because we enjoy something or because we're passionate about it, we love it in some way, it's one of our values, it's something that we connect with, well, that's great. You want to carry on doing those things. Those things are clearly important to you and are helping you in some way. But if you're doing something, from a place of fear, if you're doing it because you're trying to avoid something or you don't like something or you're trying to have certainty about something, even if that thing that you're doing is very, very small, it's still a kind of subtle compulsion. You may be checking things, but very subtly. You may be looking for certainty in different areas. You may be getting sneaky reassurance from people, or you may be asking sneaky questions to ChatGPT. It may not be as obvious as your main compulsions, but it's still kind of upholding that OCD cycle, and it's using up an enormous amount of energy in the process. And so if you can take some time to kind of really reflect on your situation, what are the kinds of things that you might subtly do that might be keeping OCD going? For me personally, there are lots of these things. Sometimes it is just, rumination. Rumination is one of the more sneaky compulsions. In fact, a lot of people don't realize that rumination is a compulsion. But ultimately, anything that we do that is about trying to artificially reduce the anxiety in the short term is a compulsive action. And when we understand it like that, when we really kind of understand that definition of a compulsion, it can help us to kind of really realize where are the areas that we're struggling. And as I was just saying, for me, mental rumination is something that it can still sometimes, trap me. It can trick me. Despite the fact that I talk, so much about OCD, I coach people for hours every day on OCD, I can still sometimes get caught out by it. I'm not a robot. And at times it can be, it can be very sneaky. And so that one of the subtle ways in which OCD can still kind of catch me is by, getting me caught up in these subtle ruminations sometimes, where I think that I'm doing some helpful problem solving, or I'm just going to think about this a little bit because, it's going to help me. But of course it's not, because it's related to an OCD theme. And at some point I realize that, and I kind of catch myself, and I bring my attention back to the present moment. I bring my attention back to where I want to put it, not where my fear is telling me to put it. And again, the way in which we recognize that is to try to ask ourselves, what am I doing here? Am I actually doing this action, this thinking, or this activity? Am I doing this from a place of love, from a place of values, from a place of purpose and meaning? Or am I doing it from a place of fear to try to avoid things? And by asking that question on a regular basis, it can really help you to begin to see more and more of the layers of the different compulsions that you might be performing. Because the more that you begin to deal with the OCD, the more that you begin to realize that there are lots of sneaky compulsions there in the background. And, as you begin to kind of address those, it might surprise you that you start to get more and more energy back and more time. And of course, that's a wonderful thing. Who wouldn't want that? So I really hope that you enjoyed that one. Please remember, I do offer a free discovery call. To get that, you can head over to my website, robertjamescoaching.com. There's a link in the show notes. And many thanks. I will see you next time. This video is for education only. It's not therapy or medical advice. If you're struggling, please speak with a licensed mental health professional.